about modest a seat at the table because most people, why don't you give them a rundown? How you started, kind of the
Sure.
highlights, because when I say somebody's a GOAT, I really don't just pass it out. It's not the next guy that comes to see the table. You say, you're
well,
a
you,
GOAT and you just started your company. I mean,
well, you got to go
I
way
don't
back
know.
to how I came up because I had some pretty tough parents. I mean, my parents were first generation Haitian immigrants, and they started life out in New York, but we migrated to Canada for about 16, 17 years. So I grew up there, but always had an eye to get back to the States. And as soon as I go to college, I was thinking about, what should I do? But being a car designer at the time wasn't something I knew much about. I loved cars. I noticed them. I really, my parents would buy me, all those magazines, and I would read them front to back. Have posters in my bedroom, typical car lover kind of stuff. But every time it came to a career, my parents would say, "Why don't you go be an engineer?" Right? So I went down that path. I did all the classes, and I didn't like it at all. I really didn't. And I joke that I invented the gap year before it became fashionable. So I dropped out of my first year at college, and my parents flipped out because for them, they didn't go to college, right? So for them to have their first, well, my brother went to college as well, but they just like, what are you doing? Why are you dropping out of school? Don't you realize what you've been given here? And I just hadn't found my groove. I wasn't happy. So I actually worked at a hardware store for about 8 months. I saved up a little money, and then my brother, he's 2 years older than me, so he came back and asked me, Ralph, what are you doing with your life? What do you want to be when you grow up? And I said, I want to do cars. I want to be a designer. And he had remembered a note that my aunt had written to, of all places, Chrysler, actually. When I was about 16 years old, my aunt noticed I liked sketching cars at the kitchen table. And she said, why don't you reach out to, and at the time, Lee Iacocca, bless his heart, was on television all the time telling people if you could find a better car, buy it. He had these fantastic commercials that are very
Right.
iconic today. And then they wrote back to us. They wrote back, and to this day, when kids write me, I write them back because I know I may touch a young person. I may inspire them. So now it's a little easier with email, but back then it was all hard mail. So the Chrysler Corporation sent me a hard mail with all these different colleges in there. But at the time, it was intimidating to me. They seemed like on the other side of the world in Michigan and California. And I just thought it was out of my reach. And then my brother honestly slapped me upside the head and said, "Boy, you got to follow your dreams. You ain't gonna do it, at the kitchen table. You got to get out there and go for it." So I did, and I applied, and I got accepted. Next thing I knew, I was in a car headed to Detroit with my folks. And they had never been in Detroit before, and our eyes opened. That's another experience coming to America, landing at the time. Detroit was under some hard times. So it's some pretty interesting things that we'd never seen before, growing up in Canada. So. It was kind of let's say, baptism by fire in a way, but I knew what my parents had sacrificed to get me there, and so I had to do the rest myself. And I didn't squander the opportunity. I really buckled down. Didn't have much fun. It wasn't a typical college experience, trust me. We're basically just sketching and drawing, going to class. But once I graduated, then that's when my eyes opened up at the opportunities to lead, the opportunities to design and do what I love. And to this day, I get up every day and look forward to it. I really do. And it's about about 10 years into my career, I started doing internship programs. I went back to school. I taught design at my old college, and that's where I realized I loved young people. I love seeing their minds open up to what's possible.
When you talk about what's possible, I think that for most of us, our proudest moment is your intuition being applied to a car and then the entire country blowing up and having to have that car designed by this guy, you guys. What
Well,
was that
for me,
experience? Because that halo lasts even today.
well, yeah, and I've touched a lot of products since then. They're all my babies. I fall in love with every project I have, whether it's a minivan, the Ram you just drove. I've touched all of those. And you get the current Grand Cherokee. We're about to launch the new one in a few weeks. So it's very exciting to touch so many products. But when it really hit me was when I started seeing them on the road, because we work about 3 4 years ahead of the market, and then when you're on driving around and you see that your 300, your car you touch, your work, it takes a village. Honestly, I hate to take credit for anything because it really does take a family. That's the other thing I learned about being in a big corporation. It's one thing to be a student and sketch for yourself, but when you're designing a vehicle with a team, it takes a team of engineers, a team of marketing people. You really learn how to work with people and kind of keep an open mind to sharing ideas and communicating ideas. Because it's one thing to have an idea up here, but getting it out there so people get it, and then watching how it becomes popular culture. That's what's fascinating about our industry is you see a product and People make car clubs about it. People join communities because of the car. They're in rap videos and music videos. And even movies, the Furious, Fast and Furious movies have all featured our vehicles. That's when it hits home that, man, you're not just creating a product, you're actually part of popular culture. So it's hard not to be moved by it, but we don't celebrate it too long because we're off to the next project all the time. But hey, it's fun, and I've met a lot of amazing people through this community and this hobby. And I love cars. As you can see behind me, it's part of my life. It's not just what I do. I really do love the whole thing about it. Because in the car community, there's not any racism. Everyone just, hey, what you brung? Open the hood. They just want to see what you're up to about. They don't really care what you look like, and that's another thing I really like about this community.
Well, I think the thing about cars is in individuals, and clearly, I think you've brought vision to that. So, individuals being able to respect your approach to design. But you were describing collaboration. How do you collaborate with your team and have a shared vision?
Number one is oversharing. Actually, is I call it campaigning the vision. Right. So keep in mind, we work with engineers that are pretty linear thinkers sometimes. So it's hard for them to imagine something 4 years out, or hey, not just looking at what competition is doing today, trying to beat the competition, trying to break away from what's being done out there. That takes basically a lot of sharing, a lot of exposing people that tend to think in the moment to the future, right? So we spend a lot of time campaigning the vision, bringing people in early on in the process, having arguments. It's okay to fight because it doesn't cost anything to fight, right? It's when you start tooling things, it's when it gets serious. But in the beginning, just throw parties for the product. We do that a lot. We took the walls down. Design office used to be a bit of a bubble. With the previous leadership, they're very protective because they always saw engineers as wreckers. They would wreck the idea and water it down. I saw the engineers as enablers, and my team is that way today. Is we join forces with them, and if you look at the products, lately, especially TRX, even the minivan is a Swiss Army knife of ideas. It all comes from collaborating. It all comes from not prejudging each other, not putting up the fences, so to speak.
Well, I think that that's part of your leadership style, and I wanted to ask you about that. What is your design leadership style? Because you've got a style, you know.
Yeah, I'm a little conservative in a way that I don't want to overstyle a car. I don't like vehicles that are so overdone that people can't imagine themselves in it. And it's just the way I dress too. I kind of, leave a little. One of my best teachers used to say, leave a little canvas showing. Don't fill in the whole paper. And so our cars are designed to basically be understated, and then you can add stuff to them. That's why, in a way, the 300 was a canvas, right? You put 20s on them. It was at the time it was one of the only cars you could put 20-inch wheels on. Then you do a little paint job, or you do something. All of a sudden, it becomes your 300, right? Versus us having it all completely overdone, and we try to force you to like it. So that was a bit. To this day, that's what we practice. Whether it's the Ram, the Grand Cherokee, even the Challenger is actually a very simple design, but then you can add details to it and graphics and hood bulges and fatter wheels and tires, and then it becomes something else. So I like to leave a little left for the consumer to finish in a way, or even ourselves later on to add stuff to the vehicle. And I really don't like designs that are overdone because they tend to fizzle out really fast. You want something that's going to last and look good for 10, 15, 20 years. And some of the classics I love, like that little red car behind me, is 1969, and it still looks good to my eye. It has a nice, elegant look to it. So stuff like that, I want it to look good forever, really.
Well, I think in terms of the time that you have spent in the industry, you dedicated. I would imagine other industries would love to have a designer like you who would want to approach you. You've been with your organization quite a while. I think there are poachers out there that would love to have you move, but you found a home, and it begins, at least for those of us who watch. You can kind of see a finger or a touch print on what you're saying because the product has gotten so much better over there. I mean, you guys are making some really significant product.
Would do it. We'd get lucky, right? We'd have one star like the PT Cruiser or something like that, and then we'd kind of sit back and enjoy it, but not develop the next one, right? So today, we like I said, we don't really celebrate the wins maybe as much as we should. We're already kind of trying to to look at what more we can do. And we're raising the bar. We're competing with ourselves, but also our competitors. And we're also, one of the biggest things we looked after is interior quality. We used to have the most horrible plasticky interiors for years and years. And I finally got fed up with it because we buy the competitive product. We would take Audis home and Mercedes home and say, they're only a few bucks more. Why they got such nice interiors? So now we actually won luxury car of the year, not truck of the year, luxury vehicle car of the year for the Ram. And the Ram, a truck beat out all of the great Europeans and American products. A truck did that. So that tells us that we're doing something right because people are noticing. We're getting much better pricing now than ever before. We're conquesting. We're not leaking. We're actually growing share, growing volume in just about every segment we compete in. And that's very validating for me personally, but extremely validating for the team. It's contagious, right? You just want to keep winning and keep surprising people. And finally, we want someone who buys one of our vehicles to not only recommend it to a friend, buy another one themselves, maybe buy one or two or three. And we find that kind of loyalty now that was honestly elusive to us for years, and it's finally a part of what we're about. People love our Jeeps. They want, they have fleets of them. The whole family gets into the Jeeps as we make more different versions. So that, man, that is wind under our wings, man. We love that.
Yeah, I think there's quite a breadth of product that
Yeah.
gives anybody enthusiast. If you're off road, you've got something. If you're almost off road, you got a sophisticated executive car. But just to see the young brothers, they're in love with that Dodge. They're in love with that Charger, and
Yeah.
the sound. It's like you guys are creating stereo with those engines over there.
Yeah, and this is the good times, I would say. And there's going to be different times. They're going to be good in their own way, but we are about to shift that discussion to the electrics. That's coming. And we're going to come at it our own way, not going to just do what everyone else is doing. But we're going to combine the two worlds, right? This muscle car, outrageous muscle carness with an electric future. And there's going to be a time when they overlap, and there's going to be a lot of choice. The next 5 years are going to be some of the most amazing in the industry, as there's so many choices, ways that you can choose to have a car, and then we'll fine tune it from there. But you said something earlier that sparked something in me. You talked about other industries. Yeah, I look at the tennis shoe industry. I have friends that work at Nike. I have friends that work in the sci-fi industry that do movies, that work at Pixar. I have friends in the media business that do stuff. So in the movie business, a lot of our vehicles end up co-starring in movies. That stuff inspires me, even though I don't know if I can ultimately jump to those industries, but they come to us. I mean, they love the industry. We work very closely with the tech industry now. So the work has gotten more interesting than I ever imagined. I thought I would just be sketching cars, but man, the places this job has taken us and the things we've been able to do because of it has been amazing. I've been all over the world thanks to this career. I've been able to work with incredible actors. I met The Rock on the set of Fast and Furious, one of my heroes. Just things like that I never would have expected. I even got to meet Muhammad Ali years ago as we were being celebrated. He was the main one, but I was being celebrated in Chicago back in a few 10 years ago, and I got to meet him. So man, all these things happen because you're in this industry that does cross paths with a lot of other very interesting things that we do in America.
Well, transportation is so important to society and how you're transported. I mean, it's funny you should say that, but and you're just talking about electric vehicles, but literally, I wouldn't be surprised if you guys are playing with something that floats and levitates and has its own way at some point. But I think that that's just the vision. AI inside of a car.
Mhm. It's
Obviously,
happening
you can
already.
invite, things that you would just imagine today you're programming. And when you talk about the RAM, it's not a RAM. It's actually a capsule and spaceship and office,
Oh, I
and
love
is
that description.
really no, but it is because it's any entrepreneur, any executive that literally wants to sit high, have his entire functioning meet his board. He can stop. I actually tested the car from here in Atlanta all the way to Chicago. So it was a
Awesome.
phenomenal experience, great road experience. Laptop up, enough room. I mean, the whole idea, I was on the road, everything packed, it was there, but it encapsulated a level of energy that executives and entrepreneurs and leaders and team leaders need and don't want to
And
have to leave their vehicle.
I love what you're saying because that's exactly what happened. You know, the truck used to be literally just a truck, something you used to go pick up wood or whatever. Now it's become a second alternative to a luxury vehicle, and in some places, a reward vehicle. People are buying the top end of our Rams fully loaded because they want to reward themselves for their success. So that's interesting. But you talked about laptops up, and you talked about the technology, and that's the other thing that's interesting about this industry. We're starting to hire gamers. You know, kids that design gaming want to work in our industry as the interior starts to become this incredible electronic festival of visual, visual festival. So we're hiring different designer types, people from that industry. UX is a whole new field that didn't exist 5 years ago, really. We used to outsource it. Now we do it in-house where we're creating an experience. You know, the minute you turn the car on, it does all these animations and then all this complex stuff. We're trying to make it so it's easy to use and not intimidating. And there's so much more to come to that. Now, a lot of people are doing that. There's many, it's just another facet of this industry that keeps getting more interesting. As you say, the vehicle becomes sometimes it's an escape hatch. You know, some of my favorite times are my commute home. I know it sounds crazy, but I actually don't mind. When I used to drive back from work, that 40-minute drive or 35-minute drive was a great detox, right? I put my favorite jams on, listen to some news, just enjoy the moment, and in some cases, enjoy our work.
Well, I think you're missing in COVID. That riding around in your Ram is actually, hey, how do you keep
But you know
from
what's funny?
bringing
We're
somebody?
having our best year. We're having our best sales
Yeah,
year. It's incredible. We don't know what's going on, but I think, as people aren't traveling in, airplanes or whatever, they're actually buying cars because they want to go visit, their families in other states. And we've never sold more trucks and Jeeps. And we're having an amazing, the back half of 2020, once everyone kind of figured everything out, our dealers figured out how to deliver cars at people's driveways, and there's been some great advances in how we reach our customers, but the demand is there. It's actually shocking to us how well the car sales are
yeah. No,
holding
I
up
was I
consistently.
was getting ready to tell a joke that most brothers escape into the Ram and to get away from everybody else in the house, so it becomes the recreational vehicle. I took
Don't
a
tell
break. What you
everyone
doing,
that.
man? No, I know they're doing it too. I don't think it's a gender thing. I think
Yeah.
everybody's like, let me just go sit in the car. Let me go just
For
take
me,
a
it's about
ride.
music. Yeah, I love
Yeah.
to me, it's a place where you can listen to your jams. I mean, we have some great systems, Harman Kardon systems in our vehicles. And actually, you're going to laugh, but our entire audio team is black. So, and my brothers, God bless them because they put some ginormous subwoofers in our vehicles, so they love that bass, So our vehicles have an incredible sound system, and it's because I give it to them. We have Indian brothers and black brothers that are part of the audio team.
Well, I think the other thing is just having team, bringing culture, and allowing
Yes.
people to um, join the whole menagerie. And I don't think it's a stayed place. I think it changes. I think when we look and think about when we're reviewing a car, and you say that, but literally today there are cars that are offering you beat scenes before you even get started. If that's the sound, let us give it to you. Take this moment to ride with us. I mean that wasn't what a car was offering. Today the car says, "What would you like? Where do you want to go?
Yeah.
I think I could take you there." And lots of people. Who do you want to ride with? And I think
Yeah.
that that's the beauty of what I see. It's not so staid. It used to be kind of like one versus the other, but now it's like bring your entire AI with you, and whatever you want to plug up with, we're here for you.
I know you and I grew up in Star Wars times, and we've seen that wonderful stuff that was sci-fi. But that's coming to the industry. It's coming to a lot of places. But we're all inspired by that. And a car, just like anything else, should be almost alive. It should speak to you and respond to you and anticipate you. So that's the kind of stuff we're inspired by, trying to bring that future think to every day.
I don't think y'all are trying. You're doing it, Ralph. I mean, like everybody, Ralph plays it down. Well, let me tell you, that Ram was all of that. It was like an NBA championship for the community. Even though that you don't know it, Ralph, there was a young man who really wants the best your best, which is why you did it,
Oh,
and you make us proud every time you do it because you
thank
haven't
you.
let up. I mean, every time it looks like you're working to push a championship out of a car, and I know that
That's how I feel
for
about
people
it.
that
That's how
aren't,
because
yeah, and
I
and
take
so
great pride in what we do. And I know that there are a lot of people relying on us, you know, whether it's our dealers, our suppliers, our own employees. There's hundreds of thousands of people somehow connected to the work we do. So it weighs on me. I take it very seriously, and I don't want to let them down. And I want to create a product that we're proud of and people really, really like. It's not, I'm not trying to make an FCA commercial out of this, but I really, you know, the passion, it's just me, you know, we breed this culture. And that's one of the things, you know, the day I retire from the company, I hope that if I had anything I've left, that positivity, you know, I try to tell them, hey, we can charge that mountain. No one can tell us we can't compete with the very best. And one day you become the very best when you aim for it. You know?
Well, I think that's obviously a quote. You become the very best if you aim for it, set that goal. But Ralph is a championship, and he is a GOAT as it relates to design. You know, whether it's Virgil Abloh, and we think about it, you're our Virgil Abloh there in Detroit. You're a Virgil Abloh across the world because your vehicles are across the world, which means that we have a GOAT. Once again, you're our Michael Jordan. You're all of that
Enough of
for
that.
us.
No,
But
you
Rob,
tell
you
too much.
know, hold it. It's one thing to be on a design team. It's another thing to have a guy greenlighting a young brother's opportunity to get involved in design. He can start in audio, begin to cross train, get the mentorship, ask. At least you're accessible. There are others who don't choose to be accessible. You've been there. And now
Yeah.
you being there makes diversity significant for all young brothers. So when I say it, I don't want to be one of those things that your body of work, which Spike Lee talks about, is what matters at the end of the day. So even when you say retire, it's like, yeah, they're gonna retire your jersey, but they will know that
Yeah.
you put your marks up on the board, brought in championships, and that it was significant for the culture. That car
What?
culture, truck culture was touched by the vision that you shared with your team, but brought the championship home for the industry. Because who wants boring cars in any industry? I don't think there's one thing, at least with auto, there's some competition trying to bring a good idea to life. I think with you, you're like, let's and win when I'm here. So I think to me, that's what's happening. And I think for all of us businessmen and business, we're all working to be goats of industry. We're all working to have passion points that we can stay with for periods of time so our body of work, as we all expire, people can look back and say, you know what? That guy really knew what he was doing and he had a vision that we all should apply. You know,
Thank you.
a
No, those are
master.
very kind words. Those are kind words. And one of the things I, you know, to
No,
the
but
other
those are
leaders of
facts.
yours,
See,
thank you.
just use
Thank you.
facts, Rob. And the one thing I want to say to you is because when you don't know, like I've been to Detroit, like most people have never
Yeah.
seen Detroit on average, but to be a young brother who stayed, and I know you've had offers to leave, to stay and literally make a vision that is people respect you in the industry, promoted in the industry, cars that and trucks and vehicles that just make a standard. You've created a standard in autos. So everybody else, I know they've taken your RAM apart and said, well, how can we get to that moment? So
Oh,
it's
that's
not
right.
like,
Yeah.
okay, that's and also like new moves. You know, we use the sport analogies, but they're like new moves. You know, so for me,
Yeah, but
that's
you know,
what's happening.
I can't wake up. You know, I love what you're saying, but I can't wake up with that in my head because if I believe that, my head will explode because I really don't want to ever, ever. Yeah, I ought to compete with myself. But one of the things I would say to the other leaders out there is make sure that you're mentoring. Because one thing I've started doing more aggressively in the last few years is passing it forward. Right, you know, meeting with not only kids that look like me. You know, there's young. They seek me out. To your point, they know I'm in the industry. The minute they hire on, is like, can I meet Mr. Gilles and sit with him? And I take those moments seriously. And I mentor about 18 different young people of all ages. And I'm learning this year is to actually mentor people my age as well. You know, that's one thing, if anything, we've learned about the times that we're in is cross these discussions. You know, you call them uncomfortable discussions, whatever it may be, but just sharing, you know, opening up people's minds. And I've learned a lot about perceptions, and I've learned to offer opinions, and it's made the company better. You know, we're working to get the inside of our company to look like society. You know, we got to get the balance right. You know, we're still a little lopsided. Not enough people of different cultures yet. A lot of it is because they don't think to work in the industry. They want to work in on the West Coast or the East Coast. So trying to lure them into our industry and living in Michigan and making a life here it's not as always easy as you think because the people that we want are in high demand and very, could get jobs anywhere. So we got to offer them something else. We got to offer them, a career, but also a very, very, very amazing experience, a wonderful place to call a workplace. And I call my people a work family. I don't think of it as going to work. I think of it as hanging out with friends I happen to work with. But it takes time to establish that culture. You have to give people extra time. If you're ever the kind of boss who's on send and just poking people in the chest and expecting results, that ain't gonna work, right? You have to build teams, make it fun, try to create something, and remind them what they're trying to do. Because it's always tough. It's never tough. It's like being in a Super Bowl every night. Imagine every football game was a Super Bowl. That's how we treat every project. And then when you win and you look back, and then it gives you the camaraderie. You feel like a team because you achieve something together. So that's why I go back to not the singular thing. Is really I'm very very grateful for the things you're saying, but I don't carry myself with that singular mentality because I know it. I wouldn't be anything without my people. But at the same time, I know what I can do to help them. So it's this symbiotic relationship that I wake up every day as humble as I possibly can, so I can give back. And now if it inspires other people, great. But I got to stay
Right.
humble.
And the takeaway for me is that just to respect, like when people are able to recognize in our community, and they might be out there and need to point their child or young adult in a direction and not know you, Ralph Giles. They
Hmm.
may not know you. I want them to know that you are best of class, if nothing
Thank you.
else, in the design world. I mean, because at the end of the day, um, automotive is much more difficult. It's not
Hmm.
like a tennis shoe because there's safety issues,
Tricky.
combustion
Yeah.
issues, and there are little rules to the game that
Yep.
change. And there's a tradition. You've got an industry. You say guys want to know what's under the engine. They expect things to be under there, and they want to know that
You're
what you're
right.
promising is what they're getting ready to get, and it
Every
has to
car we
do
make is a
exactly
small miracle.
right.
No, you're
you
right. It
know,
is a
and
challenging industry, and it's getting more challenging. But you know what? That makes it fun too. Makes it
yeah,
keeps it from
yeah,
being boring.
no,
That's for sure.
no. So we want to thank you for coming on a seat at the table. I know we
Oh,
said
what an
30 minutes,
honor!
but no, it's an honor just to see you. Like I said, to see the growth.
Mm.
You were huge when you got here. You're still there. Obviously, you've got team, but at the
Thank you.
same
One
time,
one
for
plug though. I'd
your
like to
folks,
plug if anyone one plug I'd like to put out there is anyone's looking to work in the industry. Check out ChryslerCareers.com. A lot of neat, a lot of jobs you wouldn't imagine are related to this industry. And yeah, if you can end up at other competitors, but the auto industry is getting so interesting. It feels more like the tech industry sometimes than a car company. And it's never been more exciting. And I've been at it a long time, almost 30 years now, and it still feels new to me every day. So what an honor to speak to you. What an honor to talk about design, talk about humanity. It's great. So thank you, Munson, and thank you for
yeah,
what you do.
yeah,
You're an amazing, amazing connector of people and really shining a lot of light on our community. So thank you.
super. Thanks so much. We'll see you soon, and continue to be the goat that you are. At the table. Peace. We good?